On today's show, we have both Bing Westbrook and Robin Oshla, they are both wrestlers at SRJC in Santa Rosa, and they're also both coaches at Terralinda High School. And thank you both for being on the show. Could you both each introduce yourselves? We'll start with Bing.
All good. Hi, my name is Bing. Grateful to be here. And yes, I am exactly what you said. I'm a coach at Terralinda High School, an assistant coach to Alex Wall and to Robin here. And I'm also a current wrestler competing at Santa Rosa Junior College.
Yeah, my name's Robin Oakschla. I'm also what you said I am. I'm a coach and also a current wrestler at the JC, and I coach for Terralinda with Alex Wall.
Oh, and Tawny Cleveland, who's also this is such an uncreative answer to your question. Robin and I knew each other. We've known each other for a long time. We pretty much kind of grew up together in a sense. We went to high school together, joined the same wrestling team together in high school. Hence, it's why we're coaching now at that school, and then we're also competing together at Santa Rosa Junior College.
Oh, that's amazing. How long have you guys known each other for?
What year is it? 2023.
Too long.
Yeah, apparently too long.
Okay.
I think like 8 years, right?
Oh, wow.
2015 is when I started wrestling.
Yeah,
like 8 years.
Wow,
yeah, we were actually in the same class. We were in the same bio class.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
Then,
I saw him in bio class, and I didn't think anything of it. And then we went to the same wrestling team, and I come back to the same class. I'm like, oh, what's up, man?
Yeah.
And
The what's up, man, just put it together.
and then we do a bunch of projects together, and we got closer like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And interesting thing about Robin was, he joined kind of like a month late into the first season of wrestling for both of us.
It was 2 months.
It was 2 months, yeah. And obviously he remembers that because that must have been a pretty painful process for him, because we have this period of time where we get trained up so that we get to a point where we can endure that level of training. Mm-hmm. And Robin essentially jumped in at the deep end. And so I remember when he showed up his first day, I think almost everyone else who showed up late, they quit because it's just too much on the body in that sense. And I remember watching him. We were doing this workout where we had these plates, and he had a 45-pound weight. And I think you were like 135, 140
I was
pounds.
120 pounds.
Yeah.
And that was like almost a quarter of my weight, just struggling to do it. And I think what motivated me was like seeing Bing and like all the other guys that were doing it so easily. I'm like, dude, how can I not do this so easy? Because I've been like not training for that, but I've been like running, doing cardio, but it's like nothing like that, having a weight in front of you and just just going. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
You guys jumped right into it.
Yeah.
This is your podcast.
No, you're fine.
Shut up.
No,
Well, I kind of still want to ask my icebreaker question.
An icebreaker question.
Even though we already...
I don't think we needed an icebreaker question.
We already broke the ice, but
yeah.
I'm just going to go for it. Okay. My icebreaker question is, what is your current favorite movie? And I could start off just because I already have one in mind. I'm watching the Harry Potter series. So
nice.
All of them are my favorite. My favorite one is probably just the third one. I don't know. I just really like it. It's more put together in a way. And I also own the CD for it, but I'm not watching it on the CD. I'm watching it on like HBO. So yeah.
What happens in the third movie?
Harry moves out of his uncle's place.
Oh, okay.
And he gets sent to, or he doesn't get sent to, but he goes to this like hotel thingy, and then someone's after him, or like he's in danger, I think from Voldemort. And
is that called The Prisoner of Azkaban?
Yeah, it's The Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah.
I like that's my favorite one too.
Oh really?
Yeah, that's the only one I remember. And the Chamber of Secrets. Yeah.
Oh, I've never read the books, so I can't really say anything on the books. I've only just watched them. I should probably read them, but I'm not. I would literally just stop reading them at some point.
It's like this.
Yeah.
It's like
I know.
this thick.
That's why I don't want to read it, because they're so thick. But yeah.
Yeah, watching like my classmates read that book, it was like the equivalent of like someone hiking Mount Everest today. I'm like, how could you do that?
I know.
It looks it's like a Bible level thickness.
I know.
I'm like,
in elementary, everyone would be reading like all the Harry Potter books, and I'd be like, no.
I tried reading it, but I was too dumb. They were like, put that back. And literally.
Because of the scores things.
Yeah. Like,
I know what you're talking about.
You had to be like a certain grade to read certain books, and I would try to read it, and then the librarian would be like, you can't read that. I'm like, okay.
That's the thing.
I just pick out a picture book after that.
Did you ever have that?
Which one?
Like I don't know what it's called. It's like a score.
Yeah.
Like they give you a score.
It's like a reading score.
I had that a lot because I wasn't born here, so my English was always below average, and I've always had to in school have tests be tested in order for them to see how I've done and what books I can and cannot read. Yeah, but I'll go. My favorite movie that I would say that I recently watched, and we watched actually with Javier, but I rewatched it with my family, and it's called Naiad. Whoever's heard, have you guys heard of Naiad? She was a swimmer, and basically, in her like mid-20s, she wanted to swim. I don't know the term, but it's like free swim in the ocean. It's a term for it. But she wanted to swim from Cuba to Florida.
Wow.
And but she didn't make it in her 20s. And then she retired after from swimming, and then she's in her 60s, and she reads a poem, and that dream of hers comes back, and she asks herself, like, I wasn't ready when I was in my 20s, so I couldn't do that swim. But now they're telling her, yeah, you're mentally prepared, but your body is not mentally. Or your body's not prepared because you're 60 years old. How can you think you can swim from Cuba to Florida? So the film talks about her journey, and the message that I got out of it is you're never too young, you're never too old. If you really have the passion, desire to for your dream, you should go for it. So that has been a film that I watched recently, and I really enjoyed because of the message, and it was made by one of my favorite directors of documentary. Yeah.
Wow, that's such an interesting. We kind of have that discussion about like age and maturity with our sport with wrestling, because all sports have a physicality to them, and that's damaging on the body. It can be healthy, but when it comes to competition, it can take its toll. And as we get older, it's easier to get injured. But there's also obviously this increase in maturity, which helps. So it's one thing if you have this body that's young and almost bulletproof, but you have this mind that's super also young and immature, lacking life experience. And then you get older, you get more mature. Okay, messed up my mic. I gotta stop fidgeting. Too much caffeine. But yes, that's such an interesting story.
Yeah, I really liked it.
It's impressive.
Yeah, you should. It's on Netflix. It's called Naiad. But I think just the journey of her, accomplishing her dream is very inspiring, and it gets me thinking that sometimes, especially the youth, we think that we're old or that we can't achieve something. Whether you're 23, 20, 25, or even 18, you're like, I don't know how I feel about this. And her message was really killing all those excuses. It doesn't matter if you're 18 or 60 years old and you want to swim from Cuba to Florida, and you have the passion to do it and the drive and the discipline, you can do it. So I thought it was interesting. But what about you guys? What's your favorite movie right now?
I don't really watch too many shows or movies, but I can tell you my favorite book that I read that I finished this summer. It was The Count of Monte Cristo. Have you guys heard of that?
I have not heard of it.
No, it's like about revenge. It's like about, or just like imagine you're getting a promotion at your job, and you find the love of your life, and it's going all good, and then there's like 3 people that just hate on you, haters, and they plot against you to like pretty much frame you, and they throw you in prison. They take your girl, and you're in prison for like I don't know how many years. Let's just say like 15 years. And then you just come out, and you just look for revenge. And then the whole story is him like getting his revenge, but like very slow. It's like an 1,200-page book.
And that book was written in 18?
It's an old book,
mid to late 1800s.
Yeah, it's like 1816 or something like
I haven't
that.
heard
Okay,
that.
early.
Where'd you get the book?
Where?
Yeah.
Online.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's a pretty famous book. Like it's
It is a
it's
pretty famous book, and I watched the movie, and the movie was nothing like the book. Like I can see why people say the book is so much more like detailed than the actual movie, because like the movies change certain aspects of the book, like the wife isn't the wife or whatever, things like that.
The wife isn't the wife.
For the main, like the main character, like they just change characters around. Like, oh, this character has a kid, and I'm sure they do that with Harry Potter too. So
Well, I've never read the books.
yeah. But like I'm saying, like,
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
yeah. But that's my favorite book.
What were you gonna say?
No, nothing. I'm gonna say, Bang, you're next.
Gosh, it's a hard question because I think it changes from minute to minute for me with the movies. But I would have to say that my current favorite right now that I can think of is it's a movie called Defiance, and it's a World War II movie. Has gosh, what's his name? The guy who played James Bond, the most recent blonde guy. And the story's about these Jewish brothers during World War II, and their parents are killed by the Nazis, and they're forced to flee into the woods. And the story's basically about them finding other escaping, Jewish family members and then friends, and their family members and their friends. And what starts off with them just taking care of a few people ends up with them basically building this compound, in a sense, in the woods to protect this giant community of Jewish people. And it's a pretty heroic account of the battles that they would do. And they were basically on one hand they were taking care of these. They were saving people, and on the other hand, they were killing the Nazis. So they'd go into towns and they'd kill Nazis and Nazi sympathizers. And there was something about that, about the way that they were so defiant, hence the movie name, and how they just never backed down. They were pushed down to the woods, and that's kind of where they were at their strongest. When they were pushed so far away, and their odds of living were so small. So that's probably my favorite right now, which will change.
I think it changes for all of us. Thank you guys all for sharing. And now we've already dived into it, but we're going to dive back into the questions. And my first question, since relating to school and everything, I just want to know what you guys are both majoring in SRJC.
Sorry. Mine was business administration, but I changed it to real estate because I found out recently that you could do that. I didn't know real estate was a...
That's me. I didn't know that was a major SRJC.
Yeah.
Oh.
Someone said that in the discussion post that I was doing, and I was like, oh. And now I'm switching to that. And I think the classes I'm taking now are like in line with that because they're really general. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's what my major is.
That's nice.
My major is... what is my major? My major is psychology and business administration. Right now, I think I'm just focusing on psychology, but I'm dual associating, which sounds like a psychiatric condition, but it's something to do with it's psychology and business.
Are you guys planning to implement that with wrestling, or how's that going along with wrestling?
I mean, that's a great question. It's hard to answer that with just something simple. I don't want to hog the mic, and I'll just say this. With all the classes that I've taken so far, I've tried to find a way to apply all of them and everything I've learned to all areas of my life. Assimilation. It's like a psych term. And I think if you look hard enough, no matter what class you're taking, there's something that you can use in that class to benefit your life and the lives of others. And so coaching is kind of like the practice for both of us, as we discussed, of giving back what we've learned. Mm-hmm. And so, I guess, I don't know if that's maybe a very vague way to answer that question.
For me, it's like the opposite. I use I use aspects of wrestling to implement in like all areas of my life, like the discipline, the hard work, the mental aspect of it. I do kind of the opposite, which I should be doing what he's doing, apply what I learned in class into wrestling and try to like make it more.
I've been trying to tell him.
Yeah.
That's interesting though. But in my case, I find that a lot of activities kind of help me a lot into my day. For example, whether it's working out, if you have a discipline, you kind of take that and you can apply it to, you know, your work, career work.
Yeah.
At least that's how I can kind of see that. But I wanted to touch on the fact that you guys are both in school. You guys are both doing wrestling. And she asked a very important question of like, are they connected or is it just kind of their own thing? But I want to know more of what got you into wrestling.
For me, I think because I used to be really big back in the day. Like you knew me. You knew me back when I was like little, and I was kind of chunky. And
maybe that's why I didn't recognize you.
Yeah, a lot of
high
people.
School.
Yeah, a lot of people when I come back now to like areas like the canal, they're like, "Who is that?" Like kind of recognize him, but not really. And then I tell them like, "What? Used to be so fat." And I feel like, yeah,
I want to be remembered.
Man, you know? Yeah, like I wanted to get fit, and then I wanted to join a sport. Once I did get fit, I thought I was fit until I joined wrestling, and I remember asking around like, you know, what do you do as a sport? And then someone said wrestling. And I was like, I'll go try that out. I met the team captain at the time. I was like, yo, I want to join wrestling. He's like, I'll never forget the way he introduced me. He came up to me. He's all like, he puffed out his chest and I can see him do this. He comes up, he crushes my hand. He's like, so you want to join wrestling, huh? And then he just tells me the time and I end up going there. And then I loved it from there.
Yeah, that was a guy who we knew as Frank Nafsker. His name was Jeremy, and Frank is in no way short for Jeremy, but really good guy. I think he's still in the Marines. Yeah, I mean, very similar story. It's very much word of mouth for both of us and how we got involved. I always was into sports. I always loved being active, and I had a background in fighting. I started fighting at a young age. For not competing, but just going to an MMA training center. And I started when I was 8 and just fell in love with it. And there's aspects of wrestling in that as well. And going to high school, I joined the football team. And one of our buddies, Natani Cleveland, who also just left the Marines, he's now our co-coach as well at Terra Linda. He was in my class. He was on the football team with me. He was a lineman. And he comes up to me and he says, have you heard of wrestling? It's like the hardest sport in the school. And he told me about this one day of the year. It's called New Year's practice. And he said, it's a 7-hour long practice and it's the worst conditioning you could ever imagine. And at the end of it, we run 7 miles. And I said, I'm in. And yeah, I was like, what is this thing? Like, I don't know. There's some quest for finding the most physically and mentally challenging activity. And that's what brought me. Hell yes.
Yeah. I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you, what was your perception of wrestling? And then after you guys being there, how do you view it now?
Now, in the beginning, I didn't know what I was getting into. I just thought wrestling was like, I just thought it was like kind of like combat sports. Like you kind of swing on each other and I knew you'd take them down. Now it's like, it's such a different, because like I coach now and I have to like tell them what I think of the sport and like what it means to me. And to me, it's like now it's very discipline oriented. It's very tough. It builds a lot of character. And if you can get through that, you can get through anything.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I'm going to add on to that. Yeah. I think the first time I really heard of wrestling in the high school sense was I was in 8th grade and I was reading a textbook. I think it was a history textbook or some health textbook, and it had a photo in like the bottom right corner of this kind of overweight kid. Didn't really look that muscular. He was wearing a singlet, which is something that we wear like 1% of the time for our competitions.
What is that?
A singlet's basically it's a glorified leotard.
What is that?
It's the thing that gymnasts wear.
Okay.
It is.
Is it the strap? No, it's not that.
Yes, it is a suit that you wear.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty much a tank top. It's all one. It's one
super
piece.
suit.
Oh yeah.
If you see a gymnast, it's similar to what they wear, except for it's like a one-piece swimsuit.
It's like that.
And then you take Speedos and you add that to the one-piece swimsuit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you guys do wear.
Yes, we do, but not during practice.
No, not.
Some of us.
Yeah, some of us like to wear that.
Yeah. And what's it called? So I saw this photo of this kid, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, I will never do this sport. This is the weirdest looking thing. And then sure enough, I show up, and it was nothing like that. And I realized how fun it was. And what was the question?
How did you view it when you first started and now?
Yeah, when I first got into it, so that was my actually understanding wrestling, and then when I got into it at the high school level, I saw it as kind of like a superhero training. It was like superhero school, because our coaches were too old to be our brothers, our big brothers, but they were too young to be our fathers as far as the age. They were, I think it was like 23.
They were our age.
Andre was 23.
What we are now.
Yeah. They were 23, so they had finished college. They were extremely fit. I keep messing with my mic. and what's it called? Just seeing them and seeing how fast they can run, how many pull-ups they can do, and how strong they were. It was inspiring. And then seeing what we could do with ourselves, how we started the season and how we finished it. At that school, I mean, starting at 15 to wrestle, it's a hard thing to be competitive because it takes so long to be okay. It takes a long time to not be bad. And I think at that school, it's so much more about becoming the best version of yourself, physically and mentally. It's about mental fortitude. And now I view it as the same thing. I also have a better understanding of the competitive element of it. Being at the college level, it's a very different game. It's a little bit more of like you clock in and you clock out. It's like going to the office.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, we always say that when we go in, like, another day at the office, or like when we have a competition, clocking in. It's just, it's cool. We like see it more as a job, I say, because we know what we're getting into. But now, I mean, back then, it's like, I like I said, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but now I have a better understanding, and it's a lot easier to like form in my head as a concept versus back then.
What was I had a question in my head. What was the? Oh my! I'm so sorry. I'm like blanking. Okay, I'm gonna say another question that I had. It's probably like going a little more ahead. What is some advice, as you say, like, oh, you're clocking in now, or that's how it feels like, and then before it was like more kind of fun, you'd say, like more of a fun thing to do. What would you like tell your younger self in high school? Some advice that you would give them on?
I would tell them to not have such a high stake at that level. Like in high school, I would like be really nervous before a match, and like I have nothing to lose. Like, it's my first match. I don't, I'm supposed to do bad, so because I have to do bad to get to the good, and not worry so much. Versus like now, I still get worried. I get anxious before a match, but try to calm those nerves down. Try to push yourself a little bit more in the run. Things like that, I would tell myself.
Yeah, I would tell myself to go to sleep. I was always staying up way too late, and not helpful, as it turns out, for athletics to be sleep deprived. There's a lot of science that we've learned going to college. The sport of wrestling in high school for us was taught by a very skilled man who knew what he was doing, and basically, how do I say this? He was taught a certain way, and he taught us that way, and it was extremely beneficial.
Andre,
yeah, and Gabe, and there's a lot of guys there that had their hands in the pots, and girls that really played a big part in making us who we were as athletes when we graduated, and still to this day. Additionally, our current coach, Fred Durr, he has a master's in kinesiology, and he's been coaching for 8 years, and he's in his 30s, early 30s. Sometimes he acts like he's in his 50s, but that's fine.
Or 20s.
Or 20s. That's true. Depends how you look at it. And I'll put it this way: he puts a lot of science into it. So our lives are a lot easier now because we understand the process of what it is to be a good wrestler. So there's a lot more technique that we focus on now. Weight cutting is a huge thing. I was 195 pounds, my heaviest, before the season started. In 1 month, I cut 20 pounds. Robin did very similar.
Yeah.
And before it started, I had 10% body fat. I probably have sub 5 right now.
Yeah, probably. I have like 10% probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Hence the caffeine. But, so there's a lot of things that need to go into that. And cutting weight is a really excruciating process. And if you do it wrong, very bad things can happen. It
How
can
do you
be
cut weight? I'm like, what? How did
You just
deprive
stop
your body
eating.
of
you
nutrients.
Work out, you know, after like you work out heavily, you want to eat and drink.
You don't
Just don't do that, you know.
What?
Go, use the bathroom and then that's it. You lose weight.
Yeah.
It's a lot of like fluff weight. It's like a bunch of water weight. The only like real time you lose weight is like over time. You stop eating certain things and you lose like fat, maybe a little bit of muscle, but the way we do it, it's a lot of water weight.
And that's just when you guys are getting ready for a competition?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, why?
So there's that. Do you want to take this one?
There's things called weight classes, and you got to be a certain weight to wrestle at that weight class. Otherwise, you don't wrestle, or you wrestle a weight class above, but you want to wrestle the weight class you chose. Like I was 170, 175 before the season started, and I wanted to get to 57s. So I have to make 57s before the first competition. Otherwise, I can't compete at that weight class.
You would compete at whatever weight you're at. Oh.
Wait, but what? I feel like wouldn't you want to be bigger?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And that's the weird thing about wrestling. So we all have different bodies and we all have different strengths. And, some of us are very lanky. Some of us are super, stocky, and that's just how we're built. And the thing about wrestling that's nice is you can work with that. That's like your advantage if you choose to have it be that way versus, say football, they have their own version of that where it's like, hey, if you're really tall and really like lanky and you're a fast runner, you can be a quarterback or a cornerback or a wide receiver. But at the end of the day, when you catch that ball and you're trying to make it to the end zone and you look over and you see this 230-pound dude running at you and you're 150 pounds, you're the nail and he's the hammer, or they're the hammer, no matter how you look at it. In wrestling, what's nice about that is there's no difference in that sense. You might go up against someone who's really tall and lanky, but at the end of the day, if they weighed in at 175 pounds, you did too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
So if you guys were at the same weight, you guys could technically,
exactly.
Yeah.
even though you're way taller.
Exactly. Exactly. So, right now you're 165, I'm 174. Yeah. So we technically, we practice with each other in the wrestling room.
But you guys wouldn't, like in a match, you guys wouldn't be able to. You have to be the exact same weight as your opponent?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to be, for my weight class, 174, I have to be 174 pounds or lighter. So there's a weigh-in time, and everyone weighs in at that same time. What's nice about college is sometimes you weigh in the night before, but usually you weigh in the day of. And that's what's really difficult about this process is you deprive your body of nutrients and water so that you come down to this weight class because there's a Goldilocks zone where you are strongest and lightest. So you cut your water. How the method that I've developed, and Robin has developed over our time wrestling is you cut down your fat, the fat intake. You've got your 3 macros. You've got carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. You need protein, usually roughly like 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And then you have your carbs. You need carbs. If you don't have carbs, what happens is your body goes into ketosis. And that, as our coach put it, it burns your body weight at a 20 to 80 ratio of 20% of what's being burned is going to be your fat, your body fat, and 80% of what you're going to burn is going to be your muscle.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you see people who are doing ketosis or they're doing their keto diet, right? Which is, what is that? It's basically you cut down your carb intake to, I believe, under 27 grams of carbs. And this is really boring details probably for you guys, but
No, it's interesting.
I'm interested.
You wouldn't think about that.
Yeah.
Like if you think of wrestling, you wouldn't think about those
Exactly.
Yeah.
things. So it's
And that's what
for our
makes
audience. It would be good for them to know this stuff too.
So if you have let's say your shirt's off and you're looking in the mirror and you see, everyone has a different body shape, different body size. If you feel like you're overweight, you look at yourself and you have a good amount of fat. What that means is you might be eating enough carbs, you might be eating enough protein, you might be eating enough fat, but there's something that you're eating too much of. And it's got to be one of them. Usually what it is it's kind of a combination of too much carbs, too much fat, and not enough protein. What happens is people get like skinny fat, and that's where they're very skinny. They don't have a lot of muscular composition, which could be a genetic thing, but they have fat, usually around their waistline, like their what's called love handles, for lack of a better term.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's
You've never
weird.
heard of? I have.
And
So cute.
Yeah, your fat shows up in different ways for everyone. So some people, no matter how much
I have
weight they
that.
cut,
Like going like this.
yeah, we all do, and that sometimes that's the first thing that we lose. Sometimes it's the last. Everyone would like to think that they lose enough weight they're going to get a six pack. Sometimes it's a little more complicated than that. Anyway, so usually the weight cutting process starts. You want to do as easy as a weight cut process as possible. So that looks like you find the right diet for yourself where you're consuming enough calories so that you're losing fat, but you're not losing muscle. And it usually looks like you're eating enough carbs and you're eating enough protein. And usually what's going to get cut down is the fat. But you don't want to cut down the fat all the way because that's effectively dietary castration. You're going to mess up your hormones and you're not going to be able to work out. You're going to feel terrible. Your mood's going to fluctuate.
For women, it's like the fats is really important. At least I've heard.
No,
I might be
100%.
wrong.
No matter what your biology is, if you're a human being, you need fat if you want your hormones to be regulated properly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And anyway, so that's the diet. And when it comes down to the last, say, 48 hours of your weight cut, that's usually when you cut down the water. So
this is two.
it's different per person.
This is 2 days prior to when you guys have
The
competition?
water,
you cut down your food.
What he just did, what he just explained is you do that like months in advance.
Oh, that's in
You
months.
find your diet.
Like, that's what I did. I
Yeah.
was like 170 in the summer, and then I didn't lose 20 pounds in a month like he did. I did it in like 4 months. But it was
Which
like
is smarter.
Yeah, because when you do it the way he did, you get kind of
I couldn't put down the hamburgers.
Yeah,
You get what? What'd you say?
mentally impaired.
Yeah.
Oh.
It does affect your mental.
How does the water
functioning.
work when you guys cut down water?
Oh, that's a really good question. So we have something over the years, I hate to say it for lack of a better term, after enough people get sent to the hospital or pass away from weight cutting, which still is an issue in some colleges, regulations start coming out to make it a little bit more of a healthier process, because just cutting out what your body needs to survive is obviously incredibly stupid, especially when you're trying to perform at a very high athletic level. It's
That makes sense.
it's an oxymoron. So if you are thinking about doing wrestling and you have the potential to do other sports, try everything out, because it is extremely damaging to the body,
That's
but
what
it's
makes
really worth
wrestling
it.
tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's like the one key difference that makes like wrestling stand out is that weight cutting. Because man, doing that for 6 months, it sucks.
Yeah.
Real bad. I do not miss doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so your question was regarding water weight.
Yeah.
So that is actually an indicator that people use to measure how much weight you can cut. They call it a descent chart. What happens is you need to hydrate so that you're hydrated. Effectively your pee is clear, and they test it. If you pass, then they go and they check your body fat, and then they check your body weight. And from there, those data points, they produce a descent chart, which tells you what's the lowest you can be and what time are you allowed to be that weight. If you cut down to below that weight before that time period, you're not allowed to wrestle. So it gives you kind of like this descent that you can, it's this kind of rule book that you follow. And that's pretty much how the water works. So for all of us, we require water much more than we require food.
Yeah.
We require both. So you cut down your food in a healthy manner months prior to your competition. So Robin, me, we might be wrestling in the beginning of the season at like 174, 180 pounds. And then as the season goes on, we start bringing our weight classes down because we're allowed to at that point. When it comes down to the day of weigh-in, that's when I usually am not eating. I haven't eaten maybe for the last 12 to 24 hours.
Yeah.
But I'm drinking a lot of water. I'm drinking a lot of water because in order to lose weight, you actually have to drink water. And one of the mistakes that some of our teammates make is they stop drinking water pretty far before, and their mentality is, mentally they're extremely foggy. Their joints are, damaged because your body needs that stuff to be lubricated. And they're just really upset and they're ready to kill each other. And then they're overweight and they can't lose weight. So anyways, I'm just going to leave it at that. It's a weird process, but it has, the last thing you want to cut out of your diet is water. It's the last thing to go.
I wanted to add, unless you have a question.
No, go ahead.
Is that's a lot to
It is.
to
I also did not know half the things he said. Just saying. That's why I was like, I don't know.
Robin, this is just more props to Robin and his ability to adapt and overcome. This is my second season of wrestling at college. This is his first season of competition. He also had a season prior, but it was redshirt, where you do not compete, but you show up to practice. He is at the same level of wrestling as me, but he has one season less of competition under his belt. So we are the same exact age. We both have been, in the room the same amount of time, but I have a couple more matches under my belt, and that's the only reason why I know this stuff. We are still at the same level of competition. He still has the same amount of accolades. Just I'll leave it at that.
Well, that's, like I said, that's a lot to take in, and also you guys have a lot of things going on as well. So you have like work. I don't know if you guys work, but work, your personal life, school, and then you have wrestling. And it's, to me, it's not just the whatever thing is. You guys seem very, very committed. How do you guys balance that? With everything, and what would be like an advice you have for someone who has a lot of things going on?
For me, it was a bunch of sacrifice. Like, I don't work right now because I chose to do wrestling. Okay. I had to sacrifice my job and certain people. I can't hang out with like the kinds of people I would hang out with if I wasn't wrestling, because all they do is like go to like, clubs and just party, and I can't really be doing that kind of stuff when I'm in wrestling season. And Ronnie, actually, the person you're going to interview soon, he understands that, and he kind of like doesn't hit me up as much, which is kind of sad to see, but that's like one thing I got to give up. So it's like a lot of sacrifice that comes with it. It's so like you sacrifice one thing so you can balance out the other. And in terms of like personal life, that's the same concept. With school, it's like school and wrestling is my full-time job now. I have a bunch of homework I got to do at the end of the day. Midday, I'm practicing for like 2 to 3 hours. In the beginning, I have my classes. It's a lot for one person to like just jump into. But if you're used to that, you can just jump into that right away. That's what I did, because I didn't go to school for like 4 years. 4 years prior to what I'm doing now, and I could just jump back into it because I'm like used to it. But if you were to do that in the beginning, I think your balance would be like, you'd probably hate yourself, to be honest. And I don't know if that's the same thing for Bing, because I know he's been going to school for a while, but hasn't been wrestling. But I know you did have to sacrifice almost just as much as I did.
Yeah, he pretty much said the same thing. My story pretty much. It's the same thing in my experience. Sacrifice, and then adding on to that, it's also focus. Yeah. There is an element of it, and I think it's similar to like this day and age and this generation. I think they're smarter than all the previous generations. And I'm talking about I'm not saying that about myself. I'm saying that about the people, that were coaching, the high schoolers that were coaching. There's so much access to information, and that could be helpful information, but that can also be distracting information. And so I think that the biggest challenge for us, as well as the incoming generations, is going to be distractions. It's going to be distractions. And so for me, the biggest thing that I've done is eliminate distractions. Yeah. So social media, goodbye. Music, even. I stopped listening to music unless I'm in the car with Robin because we commute to Santa Rosa together.
He's also helped me get rid of certain things like alcohol and certain substances, which I'm thankful for.
You got to say goodbye to if you want to get the most out of what you're doing. When it comes to sports, you should probably say goodbye to putting those kinds of mind altering substances into your body that are not medically beneficial for you. So that's the thing about that is that's a really hard thing for some people to give up. There have always been people who struggle with this, and it shows when it comes time to perform. You might be able to get away with it for a little while, but when life gets a little bit challenging and you start getting pressed, that's when you're more likely to crack.
Yeah.
So.
And how do you deal with you said you sacrifice or take a lot of things out. What is your thought process that you have when you have that desire to to go? What do you do? Because I think it happens to me too. No. And maybe the camp you're studying and then all of a sudden you're like, I could be doing this. And how do you silence that voice?
It's a great question.
I don't even know if you can silence it. Like I get those there's like an angel here and then a devil right here. And then I remember saying this at a tournament because it was a bunch of people just doing the things that I used to do, like, smoke or drink. And I'm just like, man, it sucks because you smell it and you whatever. And you just it kind of entices you and everyone else is doing it. So you're just like, why not? Mm-hmm. But then you just got to think back to what you thought in the beginning when you first joined. Like, I want to do good. I gave up all this and I came this far, why stop now? And that's what helps me. And also having a friend like him kind of helps you, just surrounding yourself with people like Bing or someone that is in the same alignment as you. It kind of helps versus having people that are not aligned with you because they're gonna pull you into their alignment.
Exactly. I think you told me this. I think your dad said this to you. If you're hanging out with 4 people and they're doing something, you're the fifth of what they're doing, right? Or you are the sum of the people you hang out with.
Yeah.
So if I'm focused, if I'm around people who are achieving the things that I want to achieve or on the path to do it, just like I am, that's a good thing. If I'm hanging around people who are constantly going out, what's going to happen is I'm getting up early. They're not because they're sleeping in. They're sleeping off their hangover. And that's going to get in the way of me. I'm trying to go to sleep early at night. And they're still partying. They're, bumping loud music, stuff like that. That's an example. I don't personally have that situation right now, but I do remember when I was living up in Santa Rosa prior to COVID. Having things like that, it pulls you away. Yeah. And establishing that boundary with people, I wouldn't even call it a boundary. I'd say drawing the line and just communicating with them, like, hey, dude, I love you. You're a good friend. I need to say goodbye for right now. And I need to go off and I need to do this journey. I will be back. But for right now, I need to go and focus. It's like I'm going into my cave. I'm going into the cave. And it's going to be really hard. And I can't bring you with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's no hate to the people that do that.
They're good people.
I love them so much. I can't just be like, oh, why do you do that? I don't judge them. I know why. I have the same feeling. I want to do the same thing sometimes. But
and there's nothing wrong with going out and partying, as long as you're not causing harm to other people. You can argue that, drinking and smoking and stuff like that is causing harm to yourself, but it's all, if it's all in good health and in moderation, there's really nothing wrong if you're not gaining much consequences from it. However, when you're an athlete, the consequences of doing the same thing are a lot higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. I agree on that. I've done the same thing with my past friends. Mm-hmm. I've let go of a lot of friends, but it's we both know we're still fine with each other and we would talk from now and then, but that dual friendship isn't there anymore just because they chose to do something that I just didn't want to do and I chose to go my way. And for me right now, school is the most important thing for me. I'm not an athlete, but school is the most important thing for me, and that's the one thing that I really just want to achieve. And
it really
I feel that.
It really is all very similar. Athletics is, I think, more similar than you think to academia. I mean, athletics is academia and academia is athletics. I mean, this is the best I've ever performed in school, and it's because I treat it like a sport. My classmates don't know it, but I do have a tiny bit of competition with them when it comes to the discussion posts.
I feel that too. Yeah.
I'm trying to be one of the top, 4, top 3, and what that does is, in reality, I don't care. I really don't care. If you get it in first before me, that's great. I really don't care. But what it is doing is now I'm focusing on getting it in, not before the deadline. I'm focusing on getting it in before everyone else gets it in. And so I might get it in 3rd or 4th or even 5th or whatever, 20th, right? But I submitted that discussion post, 3, 4, 5 days before it was due. Let me tell you, that is far from my MO, not too long ago. So, yeah.
Sorry, that just reminded me I have a discussion post due.
Don't we all?
Yeah, I thought the same thing too. Like, I want to get in before this person because I know this person always does it, first. But then at the same time, I'm just like, I'm gonna have the same grade probably at the end of the day. Yeah, I guess that's just one way for me to stop caring about stuff like that, because I'm gonna have the same grade. I'm gonna have might be higher or not.
So that's also another thing that, kind of going back to one of your questions, to answer that furthermore on how we think about wrestling now, how that differs from before, is there's differences in what we can control and what we can't control. In reality, I can perform as good as I want. If my teacher hates me, or if my teacher, leaves, I won't get an A. No matter what I do, I cannot get an A. So that is not in my control. Getting an A is not necessarily in my control, but submitting all the assignments by the due date or before the due date, that is within my control. So that's similar to wrestling. I can't, if I wrestled the NCAA, champ, I mean, as flattered as I would be if people thought I would beat him, I think there's no chance. It's just, we're completely different levels, and however, I could wrestle my best match against him, and that is the best I've ever done. But I lose. So in reality, it's I can't control if I'm going to win or lose, but I can control if I'm going to wrestle my best. Yeah. And that's what really matters. That's the difference between now and before.
I think you guys know Khabib?
Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, whatever. Some UFC fighter. He's all like, you.
Oh, he sounds familiar. Yeah.
Dagestani.
Yeah. He was all like, you can't control the results. The results are already determined. It's just whether you perform your best or not. I'm not sure if that's exactly what he said, but yeah, it's just something like that.
I think I've heard that before.
And I think it's something that is hard to do in anything. You want to control everything. You want to have that power. And when you don't, it can bring you down. But if you think about it that way, I'm not going to control the things I can't control, but the things I can, I will. And that kind of does a switch in your mindset that can help you succeed more.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to keep. This is your podcast,
but you guys are our guests.
Very well. So, what I've learned is we have a finite amount of energy, and we spend that energy thinking about different things. And the more I think about the things that I cannot control, the less energy I have to spend on controlling the things that I can. And what are the things that I can control? Because someone could say, well, I can't really control if Robin likes me or not. And someone says, well, sure you can. You just got to be nice to him. And that really comes down to the point of, am I trying to manipulate him to get a result, which is him liking me? Or am I focusing on showing up as a good person? And so what I've learned is to really dumb it down to the most simplistic sentence possible. It's everything that happens outside of me is pretty much out of my control. The only thing that is in my control is how I respond and react and how I show up.
Agreed.
Yeah. Going back to how you guys both sacrifice different things, what are other things outside of wrestling that you guys do to improve yourselves, either within wrestling or in your daily lives?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna let you take it away.
I guess just working out, like lifting weights at the gym kind of helps with wrestling. That's like a very obvious basic one. But I guess going to sleep early, waking up at a certain time, doing my homework at a certain time.
Do you guys each have like prep schedules in your day to day?
Pretty much.
Yeah, but I I guess it's just a routine I developed. It's not really like something I make myself do, but I do have like a calendar of things I got to get done for that day. But it can get done like in whatever order. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it, but that's how I do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm lazy.
That's funny. This is there are things that we're talking about that it's kind of like the first time I'm hearing about it, which is like, oh man, I should have been asking you these questions.
What?
We've been wrestling, on the same team for a long time, and they're good questions. It's very similar. I mean, we have talked about this actually. Having a schedule, having repetition, having something that is constantly, a habit is something that happens in my mind that allows me to be more efficient with my energy. And the goal of having a good schedule, an organized repeating schedule, is that I'm going to conserve more energy throughout my day so that extra energy left over, it can be spent wrestling and focusing on that. So the more organized I am, the less anxious I am. And the more simple my life is, the better I perform. So I need to make sure that I'm doing well in all other areas of my life so that I'm doing well also in wrestling. Because if I have family problems and if I have school problems or relationship issues, that's going to bleed over into my wrestling. So I need to make sure that I'm performing as a human being in all areas of my life to the best of my ability so that I can also perform, And sometimes that, like we said, that means letting go of certain things, And sometimes it's friendships temporarily. And sometimes it also helps us realize that maybe some friendships just, they're no longer, they're no longer, the chapter of that friendship is coming to a close.
Yeah.
Which is sad, but it's, it's reality sometimes.
It happens to us all. Sorry. I forgot to bring my water bottle.
Well, thank you. I'm learning so much and kind of reflecting also in my own personal life. And I think for me, it's so hard to let go of people. That's a general for me. I'm a very loving person. I am fully can love a person, friend, family. And for me, cutting ties, like it hurts me. But thinking about your passion and your dreams, it's sometimes you need to in order for you to take a step forward.
Yeah. And I don't think you're completely severing the bond. You just saying, it's like you said, you're going into your cave. You come back out. I don't know when, but you come back and talk to them again. You don't have to be complete strangers. You can, hit them up once in a while.
Yeah.
I'm going through that right now.
It's not easy.
I think especially with it's just also it's part of life, and I'm learning to accept that friendships come and go, and you have to just be okay with it, because in a certain point, you at the end of the day are the only one who's in charge of your life, and if you are depending on other people and hold don't want to let go, it's hard for you to move forward. And like you said, it's not, sometimes it is realizing you have to let go of friends that you have nothing against, but you guys are just on completely different paths.
Exactly.
And it for me, like I said, sometimes it's hard to let go, but then in the long run, I'm like, oh, I needed to. If I hadn't, I don't know where I would be.
Yeah.
So just, learning those small things as you grow up, it's fun.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and there's a lot of the difference between someone who is an athlete or someone who's a student. I mean, we all can relate to this in some way. The difference between an athlete and a higher level athlete is the sacrifice that they're willing to do. I think it's the same thing with there's a very large military community that have background in wrestling, and wrestlers often go off into the military. They perform well. I mean, it is something that was, I think, invented by the Romans, or at least they adopted it, and it was for the warriors. Everyone who wrestled, it was training to kill each other, and so that doesn't really change, because at the end of the day, we're still human, and I've heard in things like the special operations community. And those are the guys that do majority of the operations in wartime. and during peacetime, you know, there's a difference between them and regular conventional military. And I've heard from operators that the difference is the sacrifice. You know, if you're living that kind of life, you don't have much time to speak with, you know, loved ones, or maybe to have a family. You know, we do have someone that we do know who is an active operator, and there, you know, we know that sometimes you just can't talk because for whatever reason you're off, you're doing something and you can't talk about it, and you can't talk to anyone. And obviously we're not doing that. We are athletes, which is in no way, you know, the same. There's a similar sense of, hey, competition is something that's happening right now, and it's taking a lot of my attention, and it's going to require a lot of my focus for me to perform at a high level. And so because of that, I'm going to have to be a little bit more quiet. And people understand that, which is really nice. And when they don't, it's like, hey, I'm sorry. Yeah. Some people don't. And it's like, truly, I understand. I don't blame you. If I were in your shoes, I would have a tough time understanding it too. If I'm not giving you enough attention or time, I don't want to continue to hurt you. And so I may need to distance myself or completely separate myself from you. And I don't even like to call them boundaries. It's like a line. This is where I stand. If you want to meet me here, then come. But if you can't, I don't blame you. But I need to be honest about where I am and what I can do, you know, because it's not about meeting you halfway. It's about meeting you where you're at. And if I can't meet you where you're at, I need to be honest about that.
Honesty is key.
Yes.
And how do you guys take care of your mind? We're kind of talking about kind of like your schedules and stuff.
Our mind?
Yeah, your mind. I think it's so.
What do you mean?
It's a good question.
It is.
So like your
mentality.
Your mentality, and again, like if you're not going out your social life, let's say you can feel a little bit, you know, alone. How do you deal with that? Your mentality. How do you keep that strong?
I think camaraderie within our teammates does a very good job with that. Like we have a really good time with wrestling practice with our partners. Like we have like a community within ourselves that like kind of give us a sense of family, and they kind of become your new friends and your new circle. And I'm sure they like to do things that I wouldn't want to be doing still, but like it's that's one way to cope with the loneliness that comes with trying to like go your own separate ways from the people that you walked away from temporarily. And I just think that's beautiful, to be honest. Yeah, it's really, I think wrestling is like it. What did our coach said? It takes a special kind of what did he say?
At first he said it takes a special kind of athlete, and then he corrects himself. He says it takes a special kind of weirdo. Yeah, and I'm like,
people that do wrestling,
unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah, wrestlers. If you ever meet them, like if you ever go to a wrestling room and you meet them, it's like they're just
like, yeah, he's all right.
You know,
you're okay. I mean, who is this guy?
He's in the spectrum, you know.
Yeah, who's this clown? I think that the worst punishment a human being can receive is being deprived of human to human interaction. Yeah. So no matter what problem I have, I may believe that I can solve it on my own, but if I don't talk about it, what happens is it grows out of proportion in my mind. So my head is an echo chamber. It's also a very, very dangerous neighborhood, and I often walk down that neighborhood.
What neighborhood?
My mind. Oh. I know that's a little bit of a stretch of a metaphor, but it is in the sense there are things in my mind, issues that I have come to know and come to believe are real. And the moment I let them go, in the sense that I open up to someone and I talk about it with them, that issue's relieved. The weight that it carries. Someone said it's like to the effect of, it's like the boogeyman in the closet. It's really scary, and you kind of want to hide underneath the blankets and hope that it doesn't come out. But the more you do that, the bigger it gets. The moment you pull that flashlight out and you go check and you open up the blinds, you realize it's just, it's nothing. So.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I have to cut this off. We have a lot of great questions, but thank you both for being on the show.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for cutting it short.
No, it's all
good. We'll see you guys